For the past few weeks in the Lent, we have been reflecting about the gift greater than transgression, the gift referring to Jesus be given to us. And so today, we find Jesus being the gift, going to the temple to clean the temple. The temple was filled with filth. The temple was filled with transgression. The temple was filled with sin. So Jesus goes into the temple to clean the temple. We all need to invite Jesus into our heart to clean our heart, to clean our body. We have been speaking of late about God's covenant with us and reminding ourselves or reflecting on what we have been looking at in the past. Life is a relationship, and our relationship with God is defined in his covenant with us. Past 2 weeks ago, or a few Sundays ago, we reflected about God's covenant with Noah, then God's covenant with Abraham last week. Today, we are also talking about God's covenant with the people of Israel under the leadership of Moses. And in that covenant, as it is in every covenant, we have duties to be performed by both parties. And in today's, we heard of God giving instruction through Moses to the people about what they were to do. Normally, in a covenant, in an agreement, it is when you do this for me, I will also do this for you. But in this case, as we've just read from today, God is not asking the people to obey the commandment for him to do anything for them. He had already done it for them. As he said, you were slaves in Egypt, and I took you out of Egypt to bring you out of that slavery into a state of freedom. So in order for you to maintain your freedom and to have this happy life, you must follow the commandments. Commandment which we know as the 10 Commandments, spelled out to us. In most of the commandments we see in the Old Commandment, the 10 Commandments, it consists so much of what we should not do. Don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, about 8 don'ts and maybe 2 do's. So, but Jesus, as the gift, as a new covenant, has transformed this covenant we have with God. And that is why when Jesus was approached and asked, which of the commandments is the greatest, the response of Jesus was, you must love God with your heart, with your mind, with your soul. We should love God. And then the second is love your neighbor as yourself. So in this case, Jesus is not even giving us, don't do this. He's giving us, or he's insisting, emphasizing what we should do in appreciation to what God has done for us, what we should do to love our neighbor in order to live a life of holiness and righteousness. By doing that good, we become holy. Today, as I began saying, Jesus went to the temple to clean the temple. And our bodies, as Jesus emphasized, is the temple of God. And by the fact that Jesus went to the temple, he was able to clean the temple. When we invite Jesus into our temple, when we invite Jesus into our heart, Jesus cleaned our heart for us. Sometimes some people, when they come to church, they said, oh, I don't want to go to communion. I'm a sinner. Jesus is holy. And therefore, they stop going to communion or encountering Jesus. We don't go to communion because we are holy people, but we go to communion, we come to encounter Jesus in order for Jesus to make us holy, for Jesus to clean our hearts as we see him doing today. By the fact that we provide access to Jesus, we open up ourselves to Jesus. By inviting him into our heart, into our body, we allow him to transform our life, to make us new. It is not our doing, it is God's doing. But God only expects us to open ourselves up to him, to welcome him into our life. And once we do that, God himself, Jesus himself, takes over to rule our life, to guide our life, to enable us to do what is good, what is holy, what is right, what is proper, what brings us closer to God. So as we continue to reflect about Jesus' encounter with us, may we pray that we always open ourselves up to him, for him to take control, for him to transform our life, to make us new, to enrich our communion with God and with one another.